Smoke choked the air, thick with the tang of burning cedar and incense. Shouts echoed through the winding streets, a cacophony of Latin commands and desperate cries in a dozen tongues. Then came the sight, soldiers bursting through gilded doors, their swords glinting under the dying sun. Women huddled in the shadows of marble columns, their white robes stained with ash, clutching one another as the invaders closed in. One by one, the sacred flames flickered out. But that was only the beginning. The chaos unfolded in a city that had risen like a dream from the dust, now crumbling under the weight of conquest. Helmets clashed against stone altars, and the air filled with the crash of falling statues. A young woman, her hair unbound as custom demanded, pressed against the cool wall of the inner sanctum, her heart pounding. She had dedicated her life here, in service to the goddess. Now, the world outside had come crashing in. What followed would echo through centuries, a shadow that history tried to bury. But the real horror wasn't the violence itself, it was how methodically it was done. What you're about to hear involves the violation of sacred women and the desecration of holy sites. These events are drawn from ancient accounts, but they're deeply disturbing. We focus on the machinery behind it all, not the suffering for its own sake. If it's too much, pause and come back. For those who stay, let's uncover the system that made this possible. This wasn't random brutality. This was the Roman war machine at work, efficient and unrelenting. In the late 1st century before the Common Era, Armenia stood as a powerhouse in the east, its king building an empire that rivaled Rome's ambitions. Tigranes, the ruler who dared to challenge the Republic, had forged a realm stretching from the Mediterranean to the Caspian, allying with enemies of Rome. But when Roman legions under a shrewd general marched in, everything changed. The fall of his capital wasn't just a defeat, it was a calculated erasure designed to break spirits and claim spoils. Historians debate the exact scale, with some ancient sources hinting at thousands of temple servants caught in the storm, their fates twisted into legend. This story reframes that moment, not as isolated savagery, but as part of a larger engine of empire, where conquest meant stripping away not just land, but sanctity itself. Why does it matter now? Because echoes of such systems still linger in how powers clash today. Armenia's rise began in the rugged highlands, where rivers carved deep valleys and mountains stood like sentinels. By the early 1st century before the Common Era, the kingdom had shaken off Persian overlords, emerging as a force under the Artaxiad dynasty. Trade routes snaked through its lands, bringing silk from the east and wine from the west, filling coffers with gold. But it was Tigranes who transformed it into something grander. Born around 140 years before the Common Era, he spent his youth as a hostage in Parthia, learning the art of survival in foreign courts. Released in exchange for borderlands, he returned home with a fire in his belly. He married into power, allying with Mithridates of Pontus, Rome's thorn in the side. Together, they dreamed of pushing back the encroaching republic. Tigranes didn't start as a monster. He was a builder, a unifier. He conquered neighboring realms, Syria, Phoenicia, even parts of Mesopotamia, creating an empire that touched 3 seas. His armies swelled with mercenaries and allies, clad in mail and wielding curved blades. But beneath the glory lay tensions. He deported entire populations to populate his new capital, a gleaming city meant to showcase his might. Greeks, Assyrians, Cappadocians, they were uprooted, their lives disrupted to serve his vision. This wasn't whimsy, it was strategy, diluting local loyalties and building a cosmopolitan hub. Yet, it bred resentment, whispers in the markets about a king who played God. The political climate simmered. Rome, fresh from victories in the West, eyed the East hungrily. Senators debated in marble halls, seeing Armenia as a buffer against Parthia, but also a prize. Mithridates' wars pulled Tigranes in, his alliance sealing his fate. Roman envoys demanded submission. Tigranes refused, mocking their offers. He called himself King of Kings, minting coins with his image crowned by stars. But paranoia crept in. Spies reported Roman advances, and Tigranes fortified his borders. His bureaucracy grew, tax collectors, informants, a network to maintain control. Psychological tactics emerged, public displays of power, like parading captured foes. Then came the turning point. In the years leading to the clash, Roman forces under Lucullus, a general known for his discipline and cunning, pushed into Pontus. Mithridates fled to Tigranes for shelter. The Armenian king sheltered him, defying Rome. Lucullus crossed the Euphrates, invading Armenian soil. Tigranes gathered his vast host, confident in numbers. But Lucullus moved like a shadow, avoiding direct confrontation until the moment was right. That spring, as blooms dotted the hills, the Romans approached the new capital. Tigranes watched from his palace, underestimating the foe. It was his crucial mistake, one that would unravel everything. The sun hung low over the plain, casting long shadows from the city's high walls. Built on a hill for defense, the capital buzzed with activity, merchants haggling, artisans hammering bronze. The air carried the scent of baking bread, mixed with the sharp bite of blacksmith forges. Guards patrolled the ramparts, their spears catching the light. Inside, life pulsed, families in modest homes, nobles in villas with mosaic floors. Temples dotted the landscape, dedicated to the goddess of fertility and war, where servants tended eternal flames. Ara was one such servant. In her early 20s, she had come from a noble family in the eastern provinces, consecrated as a maiden to the temple. Her days were ritual, pouring libations, singing hymns that echoed through vaulted halls. She wore flowing white, her hair adorned with golden threads. Before the invasion, she dreamed of the future, marriage after her service, a life beyond the sacred walls. The temple was her world, a place of quiet devotion amid the empire's bustle. Pilgrims came seeking blessings, leaving offerings of fruit and silver. The confrontation built slowly. Roman scouts appeared on the horizon, their standards fluttering. Lucullus, the general leading them, had marched his legions through harsh terrain, keeping discipline ironclad. No pillaging en route, he saved energy for the prize. Tigranes sent envoys, demanding withdrawal. Lucullus refused, citing alliances and insults. The Armenian king offered battle, his army vastly outnumbering the Romans, hundreds of thousands against a fraction. But Lucullus outmaneuvered him, crossing a river under cover and striking the flank. Ara heard the horns first, then the distant roar of combat. The demand came swiftly, surrender or face siege. The city refused, loyal to their king. Gates barred, archers loosed volleys, but cracks formed. Deported Greeks inside whispered of rebellion, hating their forced relocation. The act unfolded in a blur. Walls breached after days of assault, Romans pouring in. Ara and her sisters huddled in the temple, praying for deliverance. Soldiers reached the doors, battering them down. What happened next was swift. The sanctity shattered. Many did not survive the night. In the aftermath, word spread through the empire like wildfire. Messengers on horseback carried tales to outlying villages, nobles fleeing with what they could. This wasn't about one woman or one temple. This was about the system, Rome's policy of total subjugation, rewarding troops with plunder to maintain loyalty. Estimates vary. Ancient chroniclers speak of thousands affected. Though numbers are disputed, it sent a message: defy Rome, and nothing is sacred. A modern parallel? Think of how occupations today strip cultural hearts. Echoing this ancient playbook, the horror didn't stop at the walls. As word of the fall reached surrounding regions, the machine kicked into higher gear. Lucullus divided his forces, sending detachments to secure nearby towns. In one valley settlement, a priest named Vardan watched from a hidden vantage. He had served in the capital's temple before, knowing era from rituals. Now, as an elder in his 50s, he oversaw a smaller shrine, tending flocks and advising villagers. From Vardan's view, the escalation looked different. Roman officers issued orders, inventory spoils, catalog captives. The system was bureaucratic. Scribes noted loot, centurions assigned shares. Incentives drove it. Soldiers promised wealth for loyalty, turning conquest into profit. The persecution spread. Temples in outlying areas raided, their guardians rounded up, whole communities emptied, people marched off as slaves. Vardan saw a column pass, chains clinking, faces hollow, numbers blurred in human terms, districts stripped bare, families torn. But amid the grimness, a breather, in one quiet grove, untouched by flames. A lone olive tree stood, its branches heavy with fruit. Birds nested there, oblivious to the storm below. An ironic detail, beauty persisting where horror raged. Vardan hid survivors in cellars, whispering plans for escape. He had seen the machinery up close, reports to superiors, quotas for tribute. This angle revealed the cold logic, not passion, but policy. A different victim emerged, a merchant's daughter, caught fleeing, her fate mirroring Ara's but in the open fields. Brief. The encounter left scars on the land. 3 months later, resistance flickered, but the net tightened. The climax built over weeks, the system straining at its peak. Time slowed in the besieged quarters, where holdouts barricaded streets. Lucullus pressed on, his legions methodical. The air grew heavy with dust and despair. In the heart of the city, the main temple stood as the last bastion. Flames licked nearby buildings, heat warping the air. Sounds intensified, boots on cobblestones, muffled pleas. The event crested there. Defenders fell back, Romans advancing. Implication hung thick. What was taken? What was lost? The goddess's statue toppled, gold stripped away. But the crack came subtly. Overreach, Lucullus, sensing mutiny in his ranks from prolonged campaign, recalled troops. Greed turned inward, soldiers squabbling over shares. Tigranes, regrouping in the hills, launched raids, chipping at supply lines. What broke wasn't just stone, it was resolve. The victim collective shattered, survivors scattering. The perpetrator paused, the machine grinding, resistance sparked. A hidden group ambushed a patrol, buying time. The system faltered, momentum shifting. 2 seasons later, a new Roman force arrived, but the seed of doubt was planted. Tigranes didn't go quietly. He fled the capital, rallying remnants in the mountains. Lucullus pursued but faced harsh winters and weary men. Mutiny brewed, the general withdrew, his triumph bittersweet. Tigranes reclaimed parts of his realm, but weakened. Within a year, Pompey took over, defeating him decisively. The Armenian king surrendered, stripped of conquests, paying tribute. He ruled as a Roman client until his death around the mid-1st century before the Common Era. Survivors fared variably. Many Greeks returned home, aided by Lucullus. Others assimilated or perished in captivity. The community fractured, temples abandoned, rituals fading, power shifted. Rome dominated the East, Parthia rising as counterweight. Long-term, Armenia became a buffer state, tug between empires. An ironic twist, the documents chronicling the fall, meant to glorify Rome, preserved Armenian resilience in hidden lines. Centuries passed, the city's ruins swallowed by earth. Modern discovery began in the late 20th century. Archaeologists unearthing foundations in disputed lands. One team, led by a scholar from the region, found pottery shards and coin hoards in the early 2000s. Hamlet Petrosian, directing excavations in Artsakh, uncovered walls and artifacts linking to the ancient capital. What it proved, the city's multicultural fabric, with Greek inscriptions amid Armenian relics, tangible. The finds included a bronze lamp, perhaps from a temple, its wick long extinguished. Why it matters? This teaches about power's fragility. Systems built on force crack under their own weight. A clear parallel, modern conflicts where occupations desecrate cultural sites, reminding us resistance endures in memory. The universal truth. Empires rise on borrowed time, but human stories outlast them. Echo the start. Smoke cleared, streets silent. What changed? A kingdom humbled. A people scarred but enduring. These women were meant to vanish, their devotion erased, but they didn't. In chronicles and stones, they persist. Vardan's tales pass down, Ara's spirit in folklore, and now they're here with you, because you listened. If this moved you, share a thought in the comments. What echoes do you see today? Their story survives because we remember.